I'm Spencer Guy of Atrium Brewing, and this is the Brewer to Brewer podcast from All About Beer. My guest is Spencer Longhurst from Barrique Brewing and Blending, and he's here for a conversation that goes beyond the brew house and into topics that matter to brewing professionals and curious beer drinkers. First, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at All About Beer. And to support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. We'll get into the conversation in just a moment, but first, this message.
There is no more tea iconic than Earl Grey. With its citrusy bergamot flavor and bright briskness, First Tea offers Earl Grey suited for popular tea-based beers. Whether you're looking to add Earl Grey to lagers, saisons, or IPA, First Tea has a selection of teas and botanicals to fit your needs. Email info@firsttea.com, that's FIRSDTEA.com, to find the right teas and botanicals for your next project.
I'm Bradley Zimmerman from Badger Hill Brewing in Shakopee, Minnesota. Malta Mexico 2-Row is the first of its kind, so I was excited to try it out and see how it performed in the brew house. We had just brewed Mucho Gusto, our Mexican lager, so we used Malta Mexico in our American light lager called Longhorn. Performed well in the brew house. There's a little bit of toasted, flaked rice and then some rice syrup solids in the kettle and a touch of dextrin in the beer as well, and that's it. So it's basically showcasing Malta Mexico 2-Row. We normally use a Pilsner malt in that beer, so we got similar notes to a Pilsner malt, but we got a little bit more cracker out of it. A little bit of not toast and not bread dough, kind of somewhere in between. It had a pleasant sweetness to it, but it wasn't cloying or anything like that. Performed well in the brew house. We hit all our numbers as far as efficiency goes, so we were happy with the results there. If you're doing Mexican style lagers, Malta definitely helps tell the story, especially since it's grown and malted in Mexico. No one's ever done that to this date, so it's fun to get people excited about that process and where things are going. We definitely like to tell that story. Contact Malt Europe today and visit maltingco.com.
Okay, let's get into it here. A little bit about my guest today. Spencer Longhurst is the head brewer at Barrique Brewing and Blending in Nashville, Tennessee, where he leads one of the South's most distinct programs focused on oak, mixed fermentation ales, precise expressive lagers. A graduate of the American Brewers Guild Science and Engineering program, Spencer brings together technical expertise, creative instinct, and a reverence for tradition. Before joining Barrique, Spencer honed his skills in various production environments, from classic ale-focused brew pubs to lager-centric operations. This experience developed a technical fluency that now forms his work with mixed cultures, spontaneous fermentation, and classic lager brewing. Since arriving at Barrique, he has been instrumental in shaping the brewery's identity, which is rooted in patience and a deep respect for time, wood, and fermentation. Outside the brewery, Spencer is a proud dad and devoted dog owner to his pup, Weller. His brewing philosophy is grounded in patience, restraint, and a deep appreciation for how beer reflects both time and place. On this episode of Brewer to Brewer, Spencer will share his approach to working with wood and wild yeast, lessons learned from blending and aging, and how personal and brewing life often intertwine. Spencer, welcome, buddy.
Spence.
The first ever Spencer to Spencer podcast.
Yeah, when you reached out and offered this opportunity, I couldn't say no. The
Well,
Spencer
it
to
was
Spencer.
kind of an easy choice for me, not only because of our fun Spencer and Spencer banter, but you have such a different job than I do in the brewing space. I come by your place and just see how hard you're working, taking barrels apart and decocting beers and fermenting in barrels with their heads taken off of them. And I just don't have any, I don't even think I have the patience for too much of that, Spencer.
Yeah, it's
So,
definitely a lot of work, a labor of love for sure. But, we don't really make beer the easy way, and yeah, we don't. It's definitely not your traditional brewery approach to most things that we do.
yeah, it's funny. I've been coming to Barrique here and there through the years, and I've watched it expand from just a bunch of barrels all over the place to now some stainless steel around, and it's been really fun tasting your lager beer as it's started to be made more and more and more. I remember a couple of years ago, maybe when you guys first started getting some lager tanks, you were showing me around the brewery, and you were fermenting beer in barrels that were upright with their head taken off of them. And I just couldn't grasp what you were doing there.
Yeah, so we don't actually ferment any of the lagers in oak like that. That would have been like for our wild beer program, our mixed culture
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and that's the way that we've always done it. Even prior to my employment at Barrique, Joel, our founder, he started this as kind of like a little side gig when it's full time. He works full time in the music industry and for touring musician. So yeah, he started Brewery in 2017 as kind of a mixed culture only brewery. And his approach was always open fermented in oak. He didn't actually even own any stainless for the first several years. So yeah, the beers have always been fermented in like a 59 gallon or 225 liter French oak barrels with one of the heads taken off and stood upright. Um, and then it primarily ferments in there with our mostly different saison strain mixed cultures. And then yeah, from there it goes into a closed barrel and gets stuck in the back of the warehouse and does its thing for 18 to 36 months, sometimes longer.
And they're just absolutely beautiful beers. The expression that you guys get and the variance that you guys get on when we go to that tap room and we see, 20 different mixed fermentation options, and they are all vastly different. They do not all taste the same. Whether that's fruit or whether it's a different culture, there seems to be always something intriguing.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with we're doing we do it mixed culture beer. It's usually a 10 barrel batch for us. So it's fermenting in 5 separate wine barrels, usually with the same yeast. Sometimes, a couple barrels will be with one yeast strain, a couple barrels will be with another. Um, but even, 2 barrels stand next to each other with two different, with the same yeast pitched into them, will express completely different, uh, not only in like the aroma and flavor, but we'll see variance in the pH and um,
Wow.
attenuation in that initial primary fermentation. So I think a lot of you know the game when it comes to blending and producing mixed culture beer is just having as many different flavors to blend together at the end. So the way that we kind of came up with to do that was all these little mini ferments in their each individual barrel, and then we have all these different colors to paint with at the end when it does make it into a bottle or keg.
So if I understand this correctly, you are coming out of these barrels that you're fermenting in and going directly to a closed barrel. They're not getting blended together beforehand.
There is a slight bit of blending when it does go into a closed barrel, just to
Okay.
to make sure that they're full entirely.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like to put them in the back of the warehouse where they're aging, partially filled, just
Now,
for oxidation concerns and stuff.
do you keep some beer or some wort around to top those barrels off when they moved over, or do you top off
Um,
from another barrel?
so usually what will happen is it'll ferment in 5 open tops, and then we'll usually get around 4 closed barrels out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that beer goes through a cool ship. Um, we'll knock 10 barrels into the cool ship. We'll usually get about 9 and change out of it. And then, with the yeast and trim that settles through that primary fermentation, we'll usually get 4 full wine barrels out of it.
Wow. Just something that I wish that I had the I wish that I got into beer at the time that I could have started playing with that. When I started brewing professionally, it was around the time that these beers kind of started dying off and the writing was on the wall that my efforts shouldn't be spent on these beers. So I just love seeing guys like you still selling them, still crushing them, and yeah, it's been great having your beer in Louisville from Nolan, bringing some beer up every now and then. So I do get to check in on your beers every once in a while, Spencer.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend anyone diving into mixed culture in today's market.
Yeah.
Um, we were founded on that. That's a huge portion of what we do, and it's our brand. So we're not giving up on that. Um, but yeah, it's no secret that it's been down the last several years. Um, 23 and 24 were pretty rough for sour beer, especially in distro for us. But we've seen a pretty good uptick this year, which is, promising. Um, yeah, we're not giving up on it
Incredible.
anytime soon.
Yeah,
It's
as
still,
nor
it's
should
still,
you.
yeah, it's still a huge part of what we do, and they sell really well here, and we've seen a little bit more demand for it this year in the market. So we're
Amazing.
just
It'll come. It's coming back. We'll get there.
I hope so. I got
We can only drink so much raspberry puree before we're ready for some mixed firm beer.
yeah, I'm sitting up on my brew deck, and I got a good view of the entire warehouse, and then there's about 400 barrels of sour beer sitting around. So yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine. So on the topic of barrel, Spencer, something that's intrigued me about your job for years is the amount of time that you spend fixing barrels, repairing leaks, taking barrels apart, putting them back together. That is such a daunting task in my head. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about um, where you learned how to do that. Was that just trial and error and that kind of thing? Because essentially, when I think about that, I'm like, you're halfway a Cooper at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I had almost no experience cooping barrels until I started with Barrique in 2020. That all my experience in that has been learned through Joel, the founder, and so he's very proficient in taking barrels apart because he's been doing it for several years now. So yeah, it's just it's really not that it's complex of a thing. It's just a
Oh, it
barrel
just
held
sounds so
together with some
scary to
staves.
me. It
Yeah,
sounds so scary.
yeah, you really got to hit them pretty hard, and we have the right tools. We invested in some pretty expensive for what they are cooping tools.
Sure,
And it's just getting reps. It's just
sure.
the knowing the order in which hoops to take off in which order, and making sure that you put the head back in the right orientation, and then we spend a little bit of time swelling the heads back up with some hot liquor,
Hmm. Hmm.
and we have a pretty
You just fill that
awesome.
thing. You just fill that thing full of hot liquor and let it rest.
We'll stand the barrels up on their head and just swell
Uh-huh.
the one head that's come off. That
Okay.
usually works pretty good for us, and then we have pretty awesome on demand steam generator where we can
Hmm.
steam the barrels, and that'll kind of swell them back up as well and knock down the micro load in some of them as well.
So the situation when you're taking a barrel apart, is it more often a barrel coming in that you haven't used yet that you need to doctor up a little bit, or is this we just got done blending, we'd like to use this barrel again, but it's got some issues.
Yeah, it's more the latter. It's more, we've emptied that barrel. We do all of our fruiting in the barrels as well, so we have to
Oh, geez.
we have to take them apart to remove that fruit when we're done with it, or hops, or whatever else we put in that barrel. Um,
Gosh.
yeah, it's a pretty messy endeavor taking out 200 to 300 pounds of peach slop out of a barrel. But
Oh
that's
my gosh. Can you show me how it's done next month when I come make a beer? I want to see you peach slop it up.
okay. Yeah, I got a couple stacks of barrels that still have some fruit in them. They're retired barrels for
Oh,
us. We just haven't got rid of them because they're still full of crap. Trying to find the time to
awesome.
empty them out to sell them
Awesome.
to people that want to make furniture or planters or whatever out of them. But yeah, we can absolutely go through a cooking lesson with you.
Oh my gosh, you're the best, Spence. So is there anything else that we need to know about Barrique Wild and Mixed Firm Beer before we start getting into the clean beer stuff that you've just been absolutely crushing lately?
Um, yeah, I think like our kind of approach to it is not as black and white as some wild producers, where it's we make one beer and that is going to be the end product of that beer. Blending is in the name of our brand, and so yeah, the beer's getting blended out of primary fermentation. It's getting blended onto fruit. It's getting blended off of fruit. We're pretty committed to using all Tennessee grown agriculture on those beers. So all of our wheat, barley, rye, oats, spelt, whatever we're putting in that recipe, that's all Tennessee grown. As well as all the fruit that we're fruiting with. Unfortunately, we don't have a very good hop program in Tennessee. There are a couple farms that are trying to start up in Eastern Tennessee, but yeah, currently the only thing we're bringing in for those beers from out of state is the hops. So if you want to get a real taste for the Tennessee terroir. I think our mixed culture beer, our wild beer is, our proudest expression of that.
There was a beer I had from you. Is it it's the watermelon one? Is it Summer Sipper or something like that?
Yeah, we all of our watermelon beers have sipper incorporated in the name in some regards. So I think yeah, summertime sipper is watermelon and peach. And we just
So I
processed some
bel
watermelons this week actually.
okay, so I believe you telling me your process was you were processing a ton of watermelons, you were putting them in a vessel, you were racking beer from barrels into onto the watermelon to blend, and then you were filling all the barrels back up with it to forget about. Am I correct?
Yeah. So the way that we process the watermelon is pretty unique, I think. We cut a hole in the top of a watermelon and then stick an immersion blender in it
Yeah, makes
and blend
sense.
everything up and then pour that in a barrel. Um, and then
Mm.
we'll transfer beer on top of that watermelon puree or juice or whatever you want to call it. And then we usually do some weird shit like break up all the rinds and put them in another barrel and put beer on top of them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that one, the summertime one was then you know, fermented out watermelon beer, and then we took some peach beer that we had and blended those together into the packaging tank.
Oh, that beer was just so good, Spencer. And you talking about the watermelon rind just makes me remember just some of the wacky shit you guys were telling us when you and Brent and Joel were down here. You were doing a dry hop sour beer that was dry hops off the bottom of it. They were spent hop pellets, am I correct?
Yeah,
And we like
uh,
and we like liked the beer, right?
I hope so.
Pretty sure I was like, there's no way that this is spent hops. There's no way.
I
And it just
mean,
really makes you think about all the hops that we send to the drain.
right, that's kind of where my inspiration for that practice or SOP has come from. We don't make a whole lot of IPA or hoppy beer, but we try to keep at least one on in the tap room, just because
Hmm.
we've had people come in like, oh, you don't have an IPA, and I'll just turn around and leave. So we're doing like we try and keep one IPA on at all times, and we kind of brew one every 6 weeks. And it's about the clip that we run through it. Um, yeah, but you make a lot of hoppy beer. You trub those hops down the drain or into your spent grain or wherever you're trubing it to.
Oh yeah,
It it
every day.
smells it smells delicious still.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
there's still a lot of oil and stuff in those hops that maybe you can't make another clean beer or IPA or pale ale or whatever, but we've had a lot of success sticking it into one of our mixed culture barrels and then racking beer on like mature sour beer on top of it.
It's so bizarre. They're so good too, and the your perception of the hop flavor is totally different with the acidic beer you're working with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just did that today too. I tried this IPA and I was like, oh, this smells so good. Like, let's put this in a beer.
Wow. Just, that's what makes your beer, those in the moment artistic decisions and having the capability to reach into the cellar and grab a barrel is just, you're a lucky boy.
Yeah, I mean, we use second use fruit all the time.
Mhm.
So I didn't see any issue with using second use or repurposed hops. So it's been working for us. We don't do it a whole lot. Again, we don't make that much IPA and we don't do it off every IPA. It's like, oh, this one smells great, or we have a lack of poppy sour beer. Let's do one. And
Wow.
we'll let it sit on the hops for, weeks to months sometimes.
It just goes against everything that you know.
Yep.
So what I'd like to do is get into a little bit of your clean beer production. Was wondering if first you could take us through when you started adding stainless and lager tanks and when the production started and how much that has expanded for you guys over the last few years.
Yeah. So when Joel started, we were in a different building near the airport here in Nashville. And he had a small corner of a warehouse where he had, some barrels piled up and then some more barrels piled up as he kind of started growing it. And he kind of quickly outgrew that space. And I was actually working at the brewery that is in this current location that Barrique's in. And we were producing the wort for Joel. And
Mm-hmm.
towards the end of 2020, we were coming out of COVID. We had a pretty gnarly tornado here in Nashville in the spring of 2020 that affected our building. So that brewery was acquired by another brewery here in town, and they moved all their production to that other brewery's space. And so this space was available and it was already built out as a brewery. And I knew that Joel was kind of running out of room at his current location. So I said, "Hey, Joel, like, I know you're looking for something bigger and new. This is going to be available in December of 2020. I don't know if you're interested." And fortunately, he was interested, and he was able to take over the lease and expand that lease and acquire some of the equipment from the brewery that was here previous. And then he said, "Hey, I'm going to need a brewer." So I kind of just stayed with the building. And yeah, fortunate that we were able to maintain most of the brew house. They did take the hot and cold liquor and the cereal cooker, and they took all the cellar tanks. So we kind of cobbled together the brew house to be able to brew on it for that first couple of years, and then Brewery purchased a couple of tanks to make some non-sour beer.
So
So
correct me if I'm wrong. You brewed for 2 years without a stainless FV. Everything was wood.
no, we had one stainless uni tank.
Okay.
So I would knock out 20 barrels of lager into it. It would ferment out. I would crash it down, and then I would rack it into 12 wine barrels that had been steamed and purged. And then I would roll those 12 wine barrels into our walk-in cooler where they
I
would lager.
remember that setup. Yeah.
Yeah, where they would lager. And then I would brew another beer into that tank and crash that, ferment that out, crash that, and roll those into the walk-in. And then I would take that first batch out, put it into the uni tank, and carb it up and package it. So it was kind of this cycle of one tank and 24 barrels, in and out of the walk-in.
Are you still making those beers? Those were awesome. I kind of forgot about those.
Yeah. I was during that time, that was like 21 through the end of 23. Um, yeah, I was doing everything I could to try and make the beers not taste like they were in oak,
I'm sure.
Steaming the barrels, cleaning the barrels. The cold contact was leading to a lot less oak flavor, but inevitably there's going to be some oak pickup. And we were racking all those with the Bulldog, so there's 2 points in that beer's
Sheesh.
lifetime where I could see the liquid.
Oxidize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so and it was a lot of work. Instead of having one bright tank to clean, I have 12 little bright tanks to clean, and they're made of oak.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
We are still doing a little bit of that. So yeah, at the end of 23, we were able to buy most of the equipment back from that brewery that was here initially. They closed that facility, and we bought all of their cellar tanks back. Well, all the 20 barrel ones. There was some bigger ones that we didn't really have the need for. So yeah, at the end of 23, we bought 3 uni tanks and 3 horizontals back from them. And we kind of moved most of our production away from oak age lager. We're still doing a fair amount. I got brewed a Bock yesterday that'll go into oak, and this will make John Hall happy. But there's a Rauch beer lagering in the walk-in right now.
He's awesome. I assume now that you have stainless, you maybe have the option to blend back some of these oak age lagers where if it's a little too much oak, are you blending that with some clean beer to get it where you want it?
We haven't exercised that yet, but I do have one on the schedule that'll be brewing next month that we're gonna age some stainless and some oak and then blend those together. Yeah, now when we're doing the oak age lagers, we're kind of more leaning into it, whereas before it was like, what can I do? Everything in my power to make this Pilsner not taste like it was in a unpitched,
Right.
unlined barrel. So now we're doing a lot more spirit forward barrels for some beers, or fresher barrels where we're kind of trying to like, all right, this one was an oak. Like we're kind of leaning back, for those select beers, we're leaning into it a little bit more. And usually those are like on the darker side down to black lagers and stuff. So the pale ones were always a challenge.
Wow. So you got all the stainless from the old brewery, and when were you able to start cranking? It seems like you're making a good bit of lager beer now. How long ago did that start?
Yeah, we got these tanks in like November, December of 23. So I think we were bringing to them by, late 23 or very early January of 24. And we just kind of hit the ground running with them. Um, you know, we make a lot of different lager all the time. We never really repeat stuff except for some seasonal things like Märzen and Fest beer. And I like to do Hellas a couple times a year. Um, but yeah, when we got these new tanks, we are like, hey, we have the capacity to kind of have a core brand now. And so we conceptualized this Pilsner. We call it House Pils.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you remember too much about the European hop market in 23 and stuff, but it was getting a little bit thin, a little bit dire. I think climate change has
Mm-hmm.
had a toll on some of our favorite
Dude,
noble hops and stuff.
I'm paying $15 a pound for Saaz and Middle Fruit right now. It's insane.
Yeah, and that the oil content was just diving. We had
Yep.
to use we
Yep.
had to use 20% more hops, and we were paying
Mm-hmm.
25-30% more for them. So yeah, when we conceptualized House Pills, it was very German inspired Pilsner, but I wanted to use American grown hops because I wanted to make a sustainable brand that's I'm not going to change too much crop year to crop year, and I don't know if in our lifetime as brewers, if middle fruit as we know it will still be middle fruit. So
Sure.
we use American grown sots on that from Michigan, and then a little bit of Oregon Sterling. And yeah, it's got
Mm.
a little bit more citrus and maybe a little more dankness than some of the European like noble stuff that we still use a lot of.
Are you using the Michigan Saaz?
Yeah, the Super sauce.
Yeah, I dig the Super Saaz, man.
Yeah, it's a little bit higher, in alpha and total oil than
Mm-hmm.
than your Czech sauce, but yeah, it's been a workhorse for
Does
us in that beer. That when we launched that in the spring of 2024, it quickly took over, it's up 50% of our production right now, maybe a little bit higher
Oh,
than that.
wow. Wow. It's a
I'm
great beer.
humming.
It's the branding
Yeah.
is great on it. Whenever we're lucky enough for you to send a pallet to our old buddy Nolan, Max and I always go grab a few and keep them in the walk-in.
Yeah, we've had a hard time even keeping up with Tennessee for the last like 6 to 12 months. So not a
Yeah.
lot of it
Yeah,
has
it's been
gone
a
out of
while.
state, but
Mm-hmm.
we're still sending. We haven't sent that much beer to Kentucky this year. Maybe zero actually, but we still
I know we got some coming.
distro. Yeah, we definitely have some coming. We're still distroing a lot of our one-offs to kind of our surrounding states. Georgia,
Mhm.
the Carolinas, Virginia and DC do a good job for us. Yeah, so we need to get back up in the Kentucky market when our collab is ready.
That's right. That's right. Well, Spencer, I'd like to get into your approach on lager beer and how you make such complex lager. But first, we're going to take a short break for this message. Come right back for more of this conversation with Spencer Longhurst of Barrique Brewing and Blending.
This episode is brought to you by First Tea, who invites you to add the characteristic bergamot citrus and brisk flavor of Earl Grey to your next project. First Tea is your source for Earl Grey and teas that add bright, fresh colors and flavor. Email info@firsttea.com, that's FIRSDTEA.com, for support in choosing the right teas and botanicals and the optimal ways to use them.
I'm Bradley Zimmerman from Badger Hill Brewing in Shakopee, Minnesota. Malta Mexico 2 is the first of its kind, so I was excited to try it out and see how it performed in the brew house. We had just brewed Mucho Gusto, our Mexican lager, so we used Malta Mexico in our American light lager called Longhorn. Performed well in the brew house. There's a little bit of toasted, flaked rice and then some rice syrup solids in the kettle and a touch of dextrin in the beer as well, and that's it. So it's basically showcasing Malta Mexico 2. We normally use a Pilsner malt in that beer, so we got similar notes to a Pilsner malt, but we got a little bit more cracker out of it. A little bit of not toast and not bread dough, kind of somewhere in between. It had a pleasant sweetness to it, but it wasn't cloying or anything like that. It performed well in the brew house. We hit all our numbers as far as efficiency goes, so we were happy with the results there. If you're doing Mexican-style lagers, Malta definitely helps tell the story, especially since it's grown and malted in Mexico. No one's ever done that to this date, so it's fun to get people excited about that process and where things are going. We definitely like to tell that story. Contact Malt Europe today and visit maltingco.com.
Spence,
It's
welcome back, buddy. So, you're a couple years into getting the lager program really rolling at Barrique. You're out of wood, you're out of barrels, you're able to make what I'm sure you've been dying to make for years. We just learned a little bit about house pills, but talk to us a little bit about your process. And you certainly work a little harder than we do to make beer. We're everything is single infusion and over here, and we make some really really great lager beer. But when I see guys like you, working twice the amount of hours to make these beers, and I'm like, oh man, is it worth it? And I taste the beers, and they're pretty damn good.
yeah, I'm very fortunate that this brew house is set up for it's all steam heated, and we have 20 barrel steam heated mash mixer, and then there's a 10 barrel steam heated cereal cooker. So it's relatively easy, yeah, albeit labor and time consuming to pull off decoctions. Um, but yeah, it's pretty simple. It's all hard piped for me to split off a third of the mash and give that a quick boil, and then reintroduce it to the main mash. I think going back to the sour beer, we try and do everything as authentic as possible. So when we started making continental inspired lagers, it was kind of a no-brainer. It was like, all right, well, this is what they're doing in Europe, so, or have been doing in Europe. So yeah, we have the capabilities of doing that, and let's do it.
Is that how much time do you think that adds to your brew days? Are you looking at an 8 hour brew day when you're running a little decoction, or longer?
Single decoction is like maybe 8 to 9 hours. Double is 9 to 10. Triple is closer to 12. We don't do a whole lot of
Sheesh.
triple decoctions. It's a little bit complicated just with how the auger system and everything is. Like I basically have to mash in one third of the mash straight into the cereal cooker and take that through its full mash rest, and then take that up to a decoction. And then before that gets to a decoction, and like right when it's about 195, I'll mash in the rest of the 2/3 of the mash into the mash mixer. And then that timing kind of works out where I'll introduce the decoction into the mash. That'll step me up to, my beta rest, and then run through that, split that off, decoct that. Yeah, it's a long day, but we don't do a lot of triples. We've been doing a lot more and more Czech beer recently. With those extra tanks and the extra capacity, we were just running one strain. That's our German, 3470 strain, and
Workhorse.
workhorse for us. And then so now we're kind of balancing two strains. We got a Czech strain and 3470 almost all the time right now. We've had really good reception with the Czech inspired beers, so we're kind of just gonna try and keep that rolling. But yeah, there's only a couple of those Czech ones that I'm doing triple on.
So I'm
Most.
curious, in the way that you guys are hanging your hat on Tennessee ingredients for the sour beers, is there a similar thing happening with, as much as you can, obviously, with the lager beers? And then this also ties me into your water, which I'm not super familiar with your water. Are you hanging your hat on my beer tastes like my beer because it's Tennessee water, or are you giving it a Czech water profile for your Czech lagers, or what?
Um, we don't make a lot of our European inspired beer with domestic ingredients or American malts. If I'm going to try and make the best Munich style Helles, I think that using German malt is the way forward on that. Or if I'm making Czech ale lager, I'm using Czech grown malt. and sots and metal fruit and stuff. But yeah, our water is not the best for making pale lager. It's quite alkaline. We don't we don't no, I'm not trying to replicate like Sots water or
Hmm. Hmm.
Pilsen water or anything like that. I've got, some water profiles that I think make the beer taste good, and that's kind of what I run through. I don't think, I don't know if people do it anymore, but I used to see too many people get caught in, the game of, oh, I need to mimic, the profile of the city that this beer style originated in.
Hmm.
And I found that just doesn't work for us as well. I'll just add
Hmm.
a little bit of salts and minerals to get some things in some ranges that I like, and control our pH. And yeah, that's where we've had the most success. It's just kind of what tastes good at the end of the day, not what's authentic to Pilsen water or Munich water.
Absolutely. So you are able to use filtered Nashville tap water. You guys don't need to bring in an RO unit or anything.
No, we don't. No, we don't have RO or anything like that. We just carbon filter everything, and then I pre-boil all of our brewing liquor the day before
Really?
we brew, and just to
Is that
precipitate any extra minerality. Yeah,
interesting?
yeah, you should see my hot liquor tank sometimes. We try and give
So
it a good acid bath every quarter, but yeah, there's a
you
lot
bo
of.
do you boil it in your hot liquor tank?
Yep.
And then so you boil it the day before you're going to make a beer, and then you just let it come down to temp overnight.
Yep. Yeah, I mean our hot liquor
Wow.
tank stays at 180. So usually I'll boil it the day before, the last thing we do before we leave.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
when I get in the next morning to brew, it's, depending on the ambient temperature of the warehouse, it's usually 180 to 190.
So, okay, so you're gonna have to explain this to me a little bit further. So are you opening the lid on the HLT? Like, does it need to be driving off at all? And then like, is
It,
this just a brief short boil
it's
or
just a 20-minute boil just to precipitate out any like extra calcium and minerals. And you'll actually like if I stuck a flashlight in my halogen tank right now and to show you like there's probably a lot of calcium, white carbon
wow.
built up at the bottom, so white calcium.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, I do crack the lid on it just to drive off the steam, but
Sure.
it's gone through the carbon filter before it goes into the HLT, so I'm not really driving off any chlorine or chloramines or anything like that. It's solely to drop out some of the extra minerality in our water.
Hmm. I assume you're certainly driving off some oxygen there too. And I don't know how you feel about the whole brewing with low dissolved oxygen on the hot side thing. I'm sure we could argue about that for days, but it's certainly something that I think that I think there's something to be said about it, man. We'll do it for a couple beers. How do
Yeah,
you
we
feel
did we
about
did it
that?
on that beer that I came up and made with you last year.
Oh yeah, we did. That's right.
We
Yeah,
did,
we
yeah.
did.
Yeah,
That's right.
we're not implementing anything like that. I guess, yeah, by boiling that water, we might be driving off some oxygen, but it's not a sealed vessel. It's sitting open
Well,
overnight.
maybe we should try to do it next month.
We could yeah,
We can figure it out.
we could toss out. I could purge the mash mixer.
It's you know
Uh,
it's I used to argue with guys about it all the time, like, oh, that's such bullshit. But I had a couple of lager guys beers that were just heavy into they're bringing in expensive malt, and they're like not letting anything touch oxygen through the whole entire hot side,
yeah.
until there's yeast in the tank and the yeast are ready to start uptaking it. And man, the beers are pretty good. It's hard to say for us because I just do it by default every time we bring in, some nice, malt to make German pills or something.
Yeah.
But we're certainly doing it on all the hazy IPA, because if I can save, one little shade of color on those for me is, if I can save one shade and be a little bit more yellow, a little less Maillard reaction, I'll take it.
Cool. Yeah, you're the only person that I've seen do it in practice, but obviously heard people talk about it and read about it and stuff. Um, yeah, not something I've ever explored here, but
Awesome,
we
awesome.
could maybe give it a whirl on our collab next month.
Why not? So, Spencer, I wanted to kind of end this thing with just talking about a little bit of personal travels. Every time I text you, you're out of the state at a beer festival, and your Instagram is popping off. It seems like you do a lot of beer travel, and I certainly experienced that um, balancing being a dad and balancing the beer travel and guys coming in town for collabs and going out and it's one of the perks of doing what we do, but it can be certainly something that can get in the way if you're not careful.
Yeah, we're a pretty small team, and like I said, Joel still works his full-time job in the music industry. So a lot of that travel for festivals and collabs, lands on my plate. Which I embrace. I love getting out there and seeing people excited about our beer and representing our brand and sharing what we work so hard to create with a very captive audience. But yeah, it gets a little gruesome at times, especially being away from your family. And yeah, but it's a balance, there's definitely seasons where we're about to go into what I call festival season. It's a fall for us is
Oh
like
yeah.
just
Hmm.
bang, bang, bang almost every weekend. I'm going here, I'm going there.
Hmm.
Um, and I look forward to catching up with friends and experiencing new cities and stuff like that. But I definitely enjoy getting home on Sunday and kicking it on the couch with my dog.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these festivals we travel for are the networking and connections and the people you meet doing the same thing that you're doing with the same amount of passion that you have. Is certainly something special about that. I don't think you and I would have ever had the relationship we had if it wasn't for some beer festivals. And
Yeah, absolutely.
um, I can say
Yeah,
that about a whole bunch of guys, and you know,
yeah,
just
same.
just no
Ne-
gatekeeping. We all share information, and it's just been the festival community. I don't know what you call these festivals we travel for, but um they've just been great. I mean, just all you always come home with new knowledge.
Always come home with new knowledge and new friends, and just if I can, pick up one tiny little 1% thing to make my beer better, or one approach to something, or talk to someone that's selling my beer in a market that we don't get to very often. It's like it's definitely worked in my books. Nashville's such a tourist destination that we've had a lot of success sending our beer out to these different markets. And then we see people come into our tasting room and be like, "Oh yeah, I had your beer in Charlotte or in Atlanta or in Orlando or wherever." And so, like, my wife drove me to Nashville to go to a Luke Combs concert. Like, I had to come by. So
Right.
it's been a cool marketing tool for us because Nashville's such a destination. We see a lot of
Right.
traffic through our tasting room, from people that have experienced our beer, in their home market or in their hometown and had never really been here or heard of us until that. So that's
Yeah, you guys certainly have the destination brewery kind of thing, right? Like if you're at all into beer and you're coming through Nashville, you know to stop at Barrique. And like you said, if you're not listening to every podcast and following every brewery thing, and you get some beautiful lager beer, mixed firm beer on the shelf, a few states over, um, your liquid certainly stands out.
thanks, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed drinking your beer, man, and just watching you guys grow into what it is now, and I'm excited to see what it is in another few years, because it does seem like it is evolving as it should be. I think if we're not
Yeah,
evolving, we're sitting stagnant, and we gotta keep these consumers interested somehow too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been, a while, looking back and, just through this conversation, I've done a lot of reflecting, but it's been, a pretty, what I felt at the time, a slow, steady growth. But, when we, look back at this conversation, I'm like, oh, damn, it has been a wild ride.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
we still have some exciting things coming in the future. And I don't know, I think we're at a pretty comfortable level volume wise right now, kind of maxed out our chiller capacity and square footage for stainless. So we're probably comfortable here right now. Maybe looking at, we're still using mobile canners. So looking at bringing in some sort of packaging equipment would really help. And yeah, we still have a lot of excitement and opportunities for growth on the horizon, but at our slow clip.
Are you have you moved the mix? It's been a forgive me, it's been a year since I've been down there.
Yeah.
Last time we hung out, we were talking about how you were starting to do a lot of some can conditioned mixed firm beer because those super dope bottles you guys had maybe weren't getting made anymore or something. Are you guys still filling bottles or are you moving to a lot of can conditioned stuff? What's going on there?
Yeah, through COVID, the bottle source that we were using was basically dried up. So we were unable to get that bottle, which, our mixed culture beer is kind of built around that shape
Pretty
of
icon.
bottle, and it's
Yeah, it's
pretty
pretty
iconic
iconic.
for us, the way that we
Yeah.
label it, and with the flag sticking off and everything. It's the whole brand is kind of based on that look. So we were really unwilling to change that bottle shape. We looked at a lot of different options. And then right around that same time, our mobile canning guys dedicated one of their lines to mixed culture. So we were like, oh,
Wow.
let's give it a stab. And we did, I don't know, 8 to 10 blends and cans, and they worked okay. The problem that we saw was people are unwilling to spend $15 or $10 on a can of beer, whereas a bottle, like, it has this romantic aspect with the cork and
Hmm.
cage and stuff.
It's sexy.
Yeah, so it definitely, I think the liquid is just as good in the cans. But like the romanticism of popping the bottle and stuff, like, that was lost. And we had to, come down on the price pretty heavily. And we like to carb the shit out of those beers.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the bottles can handle that, and sometimes the cans cannot. So we did have, like, some issues with overcarbonation and re-fermentation in the cans. We still to this day don't have a tank that holds pressure that we'll put sour beer in.
Hmm.
So it's all done in, like, a barrel capacity, like, open top blending tank kind of. So it's all bottle keg conditioned, and those are all can conditioned.
I
Um,
forget I forget about the keg conditioning too. That's pretty cool.
yeah,
And
we're
you're
searching.
targeting what, over three volumes?
Yeah, 3 to 4. It depends kind of
Wow.
on the depends on the beer and the acid profile a little bit.
Hmm.
And we do the draft a little bit lower, and then we'll re-sugar it for bottles.
Ah, okay. I was curious about the draft. And that's also an interesting take. I don't think I've ever heard anyone correlate carbonation level with acid level or perceived acid level. Is that something you're basing on just, the carbonic acid coming into play? Like if it's already really, really tart, you
Yeah,
want
if
to be
it's
a little more gentle or
yeah, I think so. I think if it's already, like, quite hard because, like, either the base beer, we're intending to blend something a little bit more sour, or the fruit that we use is a little bit more acidic than some other fruit, like berries and stuff, then I think a little bit softer of a carbonation level is beneficial to that, just because of the bite, the carbonic bite that's added to the carbonic acid.
It certainly
Um,
plays into your mouthfeel there too.
yeah, it maybe thins it out a little bit too much if it's too effervescent
Hmm.
and too acidic.
Hmm.
Yeah, but for the most part, we have, like, a pretty standardized, like, sugar rate based on volume for draft and one for bottles.
Hmm.
That
And
fluctuates a little bit, but
And do you guys I assume you have to add fresh yeast to these when you're adding sugar?
yeah, yeah, we use
Yeah.
like a conditioning yeast,
Hmm.
and all of it, except for this completely spontaneous beers. Those ones we're trying to do like as authentic and using some young beer. We do still add some sugar as well, but we're not re-yeasting the
Mm-hmm.
the ones that we're labeling like completely spontaneous.
You're just
Which it
pulling some younger beer with some more live yeast in it and
Yep.
forgetting about it, crossing your fingers.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
more often than not, we see carbonation, pretty quickly, especially through the warmer months. Our warehouse is not air conditioned, so
right.
um, we'll see carbonation, within a week or two, and then it's just waiting for it to clear some off flavors and stuff, and then we label it up and put it for sale.
So when you lay a bottle down, do you have a calendar that says every month I need to pop one of these bottles? What's your regimen for checking in on that stuff and deciding when to put it on the shelf?
Yeah, usually within like a couple weeks, you can go up, grab a bottle, and give it a little shake, and you can see if there's CO2 dissolved in it, like uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll probably chill one within a month and pop that and see. And usually they're pretty gassed up within a month. It's even in the colder months in here, we see carbonation pretty quickly. Um, and then
Have
it's
you,
just
do
kind
you,
of it's waiting. We have a huge issue with THP.
I was
As
literally about to
soon as we
ask you if
package
you ever
it.
deal with THP.
Oh, all the time. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
almost every single blend gets pretty discernible amount of THP, and that's really the hang up for us on when everything's going to be
Mm-hmm.
released. Like I said, we see carbonation pretty quickly, but sometimes THP can be between 2 and 4 months to clear, and that a lot of
Wow.
that I think has to do with the ambient temperature in here.
Does your THP tend to clear quicker in the summer?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we
Yeah.
bottle something in November, we're probably not going to be even remotely close to releasing it until the spring. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
April, March, April. If we bottle something today, I think we could have it out, within 6 weeks probably.
Wow.
Today is
That's
in like
quite a
we're
difference.
recording this in August, so
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That is bizarre. So last question on your bottle condition stuff. Well,
yeah,
keg condition stuff. So I've been to your bar. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you guys are basically serving off of kegerators, right? You don't have a
correct.
big
Yeah,
walk-in.
correct.
So you kick a keg of summer sipper, whatever. Your bartender has to go into the back, wheel a keg out. Is that beer? Are you then waiting till tomorrow to serve that beer, tapping it, bleeding the yeast off the bottom, and then serving it? Or are you, how are you approaching that?
Yeah, so we do have a walk-in, but we're not serving off of it.
Right.
So yeah, the bartenders will grab another cold keg and tap that, and there will be half a pint of sediment at the bottom that they'll ditch before serving a
Hmm.
proper pour.
But it's not
Um,
getting in the walk from the walk-in to the bar. That yeast isn't getting jostled enough up to have to wait till the next day to serve that beer.
no, no, and our bartenders are great. We've been like, hey, carry these upright or put them on a dolly, and kind of be gentle with them because there is yeast in suspension. Um, so yeah, they're gentle with it. It's all quarter or sixtels. So, they're not too heavy. They're pretty easy to finagle out of the walk-in and into the keg box. And like, yeah, there's half a pint to
Hmm.
a pint of crude at the bottom, but
I will
it's
say your bartenders have been, some of the most passionate and respectful to the beer bartenders that I've seen at any brewery. I know you got a new crew now, but every time we've been there, it just, you feel like the guys behind the bar care just as much as Spencer does.
yeah, we're really fortunate that we've been able to, since we opened, have we've had several different teams now, or people come and go. But we're really fortunate that everyone's been, industry vets that are really, we're pretty niche in the styles of beer we make and the way that we're pouring them and presenting them. So there's quite a bit of training involved in that with our guys and gals. Um, but yeah,
Seems like they're working there because they
it's
want to work there.
yeah, I think so. Absolutely. they could go probably to a million other bars or breweries in town that it would be an easier sell than trying to explain the difference between the 4 different pilsners and 20 different mixed culture beers we have. But
and be really gentle with this keg and pour it right, and
and open these corking cages for people, and present it the way that we want it presented, and be able to talk about why our beer is different than I think 90% of the breweries in America.
It's hard, Spencer. It's really hard. You certainly, I assume, you have a lot to do with that. You certainly have the personability and the personality to make someone else excited about what you're doing. And that goes a really long way. It's rare these days.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we take a lot of pride in, every step of the way, from, the long ass decoctions or turbid mashes to letting beer age for years. So we don't want to fumble it at the goal line here at the point of service.
Absolutely. And the glassware is gorgeous as well.
Yeah, we take a lot of pride in when we bought the keg boxes, they're whatever keg box costs, $1,500 or something, and then we put roto taps and loopers on them, and then you got to put a tower to make the looper so you can fit a glass under the looper, and,
right,
and the drip tray has to stick out further. So I think we put more auxiliary parts on these keg boxes than the keg boxes are worth. So I was joking with Joel.
You might have got a long draw system.
Yeah, we souped up a Honda Civic.
Totally. Oh, those things are gangster. All right, Spencer. Well, I think this about wraps it up, buddy. I'm looking forward to coming and seeing you next month and making some pills with you. Is there anything else the world should know about Spencer, about Barrique, about your dog? Anything you got?
Well, he's a good boy, and
I'm sure.
Come see us if you're ever in Nashville, and say hello to the bar staff, or if anyone of us is in the back. Peek your head in and say what's up. Check out our Instagram. That's where you can find most up-to-date stuff on the beers we're making and the events we're doing and stuff. So, yeah, man, looking forward for you to get down here and brew with me.
Absolutely. A long time coming. Spencer, thank you so much for joining me and being willing today. I had a lot of fun, and we'll see you next month. Spencer Longhurst will be back on the next episode of the show as the host, having a conversation with a brewer of his choosing. That will be on the air in about 2 weeks, so make sure you tune in for that. A reminder, visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media. To support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. My name is Spencer Guy from Atrium Brewing in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for listening to the Brewer to Brewer podcast. Cheers.
From Badger Hill Brewing in Shakopee, Minnesota. Malta Mexico 2 is the first of its kind, so I was excited to try it out and see how it performed in the brew house. We had just brewed Mucho Gusto, our Mexican lager, so we used Malta Mexico in our American light lager called Longhurst. Performed well in the brew house. There's a little bit of toasted, flaked rice, and then some rice syrup solids in the kettle, and a touch of dextrin in the beer as well, and that's it. So it's basically showcasing Malta Mexico 2. We normally use a Pilsner malt in that beer, so we got similar notes to a Pilsner malt, but we got a little bit more cracker out of it. A little bit of not toast and not bread dough, kind of somewhere in between. It had a pleasant sweetness to it, but it wasn't cloying or anything like that. Performed well in the brew house. We hit all our numbers as far as efficiency goes, so we were happy with the results there. If you're doing Mexican-style lagers, Malta definitely helps tell the story, especially since it's grown and malted in Mexico. No one's ever done that to this date, so it's fun to get people excited about that process and where things are going. We definitely like to tell that story. Contact Malt Europe today and visit maltingco.com.
First Tea is a proud sponsor of the Brewer to Brewer podcast. First Tea invites you to explore the rich and versatile world of teas and botanicals, including Earl Grey tea. Email info@firsttea.com. That's FIRSDTEA.com to find out more.